Well, hi there. Today we're here for our fourth installment of talking to senior professionals within cybersecurity. Today I've got Justin Mihoff with me from over the pond in the US, a great champion, ex-war veteran as well. He's from the military background, so I'm gonna get straight into this with Justin, who's a good friend of mine. Justin, now let's get into this. Tell me, how did you get into cybersecurity? What was your route?
So I will go ahead and let people get on imdb.com and look up the movie True Lies. I was looking to around 1996. I didn't want to have my college paid for. My grandfather went into the military, and that's how he became a doctor. He had other paths. He wanted to work on a farm for our family originally, and then changed that during his service. So I thought that that would do the same for me. Um, when I went to the True Lies reference, when I went to the location pick out which job you're going to do, all of the jobs were on Laserdisc, by the way. So I watched a Laserdisc about uh, people in back of a tactical vehicle controlling the message center, and the messages um, from the field, and then also if strategic and tactical versions of it. And to me, it was like Tom Arnold in the movie True Lies, where you sit in the van and you help out the spy. And I've always been a spy buff. Not crazily, like I don't own a bunch of things, but I've always been a fan of 007 and what there's some other you British shows that I was into. I can't think of them at this time, but like from the 60s and 70s, Mission Impossible, the TV series as well, things like that. Um, but then when I went into the military, I thought I was going to be doing all the secret squirrel things, and it turns out I was more. I jokingly call it. I felt like I was a secretary with a TS clearance, where I was basically processing paperwork. But back then, um, you had message centers because email wasn't a thing yet, and it wasn't fully established. It was around, but it wasn't fully established, especially not for secure transmissions of email. That hadn't been created yet, or was in the infancy. It wasn't established. So my job then was multiple things, but was to get the messages in and then direct them to who they have to go to. Well, that's access control. And then we would have to make sure that the systems that we use to get those messages through are secure. So monthly, we're having to put in encryption by using pull tape. So you'd have tape that was perforated with holes, uh, designating what the encryption code was, and you'd have to pull it through this pull system and have it take into your encryption device, and then you could communicate. And then also, I was in charge. I was one of the ones, not in charge, but I was one of the ones that would make sure you might see them in movies, but secure phones. And nowadays, I don't think you really need one, but you'd have a key and you'd have to turn the key to go from unsecure to secure. And so that was part of my role. So that's back in 97 and 98. And then I was kind of lucky in my 20 years of the service where, and that's how I broke in, is I was able to be in technically an IT position, but I've always been, and I think it's because of that job and needing the clearance, because each place that I went, they're like, oh, you have the TS clearance. That means you can work in the secure area. And so they always kept my clearance up to date my whole career. It definitely benefited me and separated me from others. Um, and then one thing that I didn't, and keep me on track, one thing that I didn't really get, and I think has changed now in the service, especially in the US, is um, it was very big for like leaders and certain people to get training and then come back and then teach people. They weren't sending people to boot camps. They weren't sending people. Not, I mean, they were, but not in droves. Only certain people would get selected. I was 10 years in before I got my first certification, which was Security Plus, which I paid for by myself. Um, so around 2007, but it probably started earlier than that. In the U.S., in the government, they went to making sure that the roles had certification. So they started tracking against DoD 8570, and it's this matrix, has this matrix of different certifications and what they you can use them for role wise, and that was heavily for the civilian workforce, but it definitely, and it is now. It doesn't matter if you're military or not. If you're on the network, you need to be certified. And so I had to get an A plus certification. And when I was taking the A plus certification boot camp, it was a week long. I just knew I wouldn't pass the test. Um, to me, and it's probably changed since then, but remembering bus speeds and different things of computers that you don't even use anymore made no sense to me. So I cracked open the study guide for Security Plus, and um, it just made sense to me. Like, because of my 10-year background of go in a sense doing it hands on, to me, and it's not to sound cocky, it just seemed very simple to me. It wasn't a hard thing for my brain to comprehend, and I paid for my certification, got reimbursed through in the U.S. We have funding for our education in the military, and
Mhm.
because I didn't get the A plus, the unit that I was at, that's the one that they had paid for, but they accepted any CompTIA, for that role. I just needed an entry level, and the Security Plus. While I was on the help desk, the Security Plus will help me. So then, while I'm on the help desk, I'm also, because I didn't get the A plus, I had Security Plus. I was the one that was always in charge at that location around like the security portion of our roles and making sure that that stuff was done and in place and have the program. Um, so yeah, that's kind of answered two of them, because
Mhm.
that's how I broke in, and then I really didn't get a certification until 10 years in.
Mhm.
Um, I think that changes. I think that's I I could not see, maybe, but I highly doubt someone starting today in the government or in the private sector, if you're going to go 10 years without getting a certification. I don't see it. Um, but that was my story. And then um, went corporate, and the reason why I got to go corporate, and I'll probably answer the other question that you had, is because of my certifications. So during the Army, um, I got selected to switch my role from the IT role that I was in to the newer role that now exists, is cybersecurity related. I didn't make it. I only passed one of the five certifications that you had to pass at that time to get the role. So I passed GSEC, um, but I took five. I don't remember all of them. I think it was GSEC and then GPEN, and it was a total of five different certifications from SANS. But that literally set me on the path that I think I'm on today, because SANS training is not only for government, it's for any, like, it applies to anything. And that's when I first started seeing like ROI being a part of your selection of tools, the business side of it. And it kind of sparked a thing in me that I already didn't want to, for personal reasons. I didn't really want to go the common, retire from military and go the government contractor route, which I'm not disparaging others. That just wasn't the path for me.
Mhm.
I felt like um, I'm not an expert in government security, but I felt like I kind of completed that level. and I didn't know corporate. And to me, to be a true cybersecurity practitioner, and professional, because I'm doing it for a professional sense, but I've been trying to use the term practitioner more,
Hmm.
is that I needed to understand the corporate side. So I kind of immersed myself into that. But I would never have gotten, I don't think I would have gotten any of the roles that I've gotten if I didn't have GSEC on my on my resume, because I, at the time when I got out, I didn't even have my 4-year degree yet. And so I have a 2-year degree at the time, 2-year degree, but I have 20 years of experience with the certifications. That's what locked me in, was that I
Hmm.
had that. I don't think I would have even gotten phone calls back if I didn't. Personally, I think you can, but there's, you have to prove what you bring to the table.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's a very, very interesting point, and I think it's very key that you got the experience primarily from being in the military. You then obviously went into the corporate sector. You got your certifications unusually afterwards rather than before, which is, but maybe a few years back that was still more acceptable. And I think today there's a much bigger move towards entry level people having some certs just to show a baseline going forward for any employer. So I think
Yep.
that's very interesting. You've definitely answered both the points in terms of boot camps and how you got in. So one final question is, what would you recommend for entry level candidates trying to break into the sector? What do they need to do? What advice, maybe the top 3 or 4 things you can advise that they need to do to be able to get that first role in cybersecurity?
I think a couple of things, and not directly in this order. I think having a good mentor and a group around you to um, help give you advice. You don't have to follow everything that they say, um, but if you're trying to get into an industry that you're not in, I think you need to connect with the people that you're trying to be a part of. You're trying to be a part of that group, so start trying to be a part of that group. And I would say, for the most part, I think cybersecurity field, excuse me, and the people within it are pretty open about sharing, um, and trying to help each other get in. And that, to me, that's kind of what how cybersecurity started. I mean, Kevin Mitnick wasn't just getting certifications and going to college to do what he did. He figured things out himself, and I'm sure um, he had people that he trusted to bounce ideas off of, or you know, or just really trial and error. So I think that is, and specifically, it's not just getting any mentor, right? Because I mentor some people, but I only mentor certain things because I'm not a pen testing expert. I haven't been doing pen
Exactly.
testing for 20 years. So if you have aspirations to get into pen testing, I definitely can help you on certain things, but I would urge you to connect with people within those. So going to conferences, being a part of online communities, and just listening and being connected with others that talk about that, so that
Hmm.
you can learn about different events. I think that's huge. Um, I think, yeah, I think the networking, because I think one of our issue, I think, is we don't we hire off of experience. We don't hire off of talent.
Hmm.
And if there's ways to show your talents and what you can do if given the job. So if you volunteered, I'm huge on that. If you volunteered for anyone, or um, participating in CTF, in capture the flag events, or different, like the cybersecurity US Open is starting next week. It's open to anyone in the world. There are some countries that are not allowed to participate because it's US funded, but it's basically anyone in the world can participate. Well, that means a lot of people are going to be looking, and potentially can make connections that way. Oh, I met you, hey, we competed together on the CTF,
Absolutely.
like, and then going to the conferences. The other secret sauce I'll give out is, and I was just talking to one of my friends the other day. One thing that I have seen and I am now a part of is leaders tend to, as they go up in positions, they're further and further away from the technology and the people. And one way is to ensure that you stay technical. And also, what I'm saying, secret sauce there is people in my position and others and CISOs and different security professionals that have been in for a while. Remember, they've been in for a while. They don't know how to break in. However, they could give you some great insights that you're not going to get from anywhere else because they've already gone through that. So I think um, because and they've been, that's what I was trying to, they've been so far removed from what they used to do because they used to be practitioners as well generally. So
Yep.
being able to give them that touch back to that time, we thrive off of it. Like at least I do. Like that's one of the things. Mentoring, it, I have to go back to mentor. I honestly think if you find a good mentoring situation and that person really has your uh has you has what your goals in mind, I think is helpful. But then also remember that a mentoring relationship is two ways. That mentor, um they don't need anything from you tech like monetarily or anything, but I can't talk about what's going on today in breaking into cybersecurity if I don't have the connections that are actually doing that. That's how I
Absolutely.
learn about it.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And I think you've given some excellent tips. I think the mentoring one is especially very strong. And I found myself that those mentees that actually put a lot of effort in, they get much more out of it and much more likely to get an entry level role. Those, whether I've mentored them directly or it just helped them, I've noticed that
Right.
the ones that put the effort in themselves in trying to build those very connections you're talking about, they're the ones who are successful, and they do get in there. They don't sit there moaning and bitching. Yeah, they might have a bad day and they might just complain to you on a once or twice, but in general, the people that are successful will just sit there, mark a plan out, and say, I want to get to X. I'm at A. How do I get there? And it's not that you do it for them. You help them. You guide them along the way. You put connections in their path to say, right, connect to that person, talk to them. You as a mentor go out there and do talk to senior professionals. I certainly do. And where I can try and get an introduction to a mentee, I absolutely do. So I totally get that. I think it's a very, very invaluable advice. So thank you very much for that, Justin. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to catching up with other people. So thank you very much.